Can you hear
Okay, you
now?
can. I can. No, not
Yeah, ma'am.
here.
We can
Just
hear.
hold for. Just hold for. Just hold
Wait,
for.
can you hear now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right.
Yeah, now we can hear you. Yes, yes, yes.
Problem solved.
Always, that's a better one. In
Yeah.
fact, I have always wondered, ma'am, whenever we are very natural and without these tech things, we seems to be a little better in terms of our
That's true.
abilities and our
That is
and I don't know why. Despite all this euphoria about technology, okay, ma'am, I must say we are extremely honored and privileged to have you all with us. And honestly speaking, when I had first interacted with Priya, I never knew that you will actually be agreeing to this, event.
it's my pleasure.
The Ma'am, we are a small college. To introduce ourselves first, we are a small college, but we have a lot of love. We have a huge heart in the sense that we are doing a lot for the students on multiple dimensions. Not only in terms of developing them as resources for the industry, but also trying to inculcate in them a lot of other aspects which are beyond, your industry needs. So it's a very comprehensive way we are trying to build ourselves, and we are 30 years old. It's not that we are doing it only a few days. And whenever people like you attach with us and come to us to talk, we are encouraged. More when our students are encouraged, we are also encouraged. So, having said that, I will need to start this session. My managing director, Mr. Abhinandan Dey, is there. Our principal, Dr. He's there. Sir, if you can, our principal, Dr. Anshuman Chatterjee, he is there.
Namaste.
He's also there. Our Dr. Urvi Ghosh Bhattacharya. Urvi, if you can kindly switch on your and you can just wave your hands, please.
Yeah, yeah.
At
Hello,
least,
ma'am.
yeah.
Great
Namaste.
seeing
She's
you.
Namaste.
the,
Namaste, ma'am.
so they are all the ones, our heads, who are actually driving all of us. And today's session will be actually handled by Abhinandan himself. And before students, I think they are all joining. Let me introduce you a little to all of them, although they know about you already. Well, students, and also all the people who are engaged from or who are connected to us from other institutions and industry. Let me tell you about Madam Sumedha Verma Oja. She was an Indian Revenue Service officer of the 1992 batch, and with degrees in economics and sociology from Lady Shri Ram College, New Delhi. And of course, she is an alumnus of Delhi School of Economics. She lives in Geneva. She's talking to you from Geneva, all the way from Geneva right now. And she also is a consultant to a lot of
Ma'am is
special.
an advisor to UN as well. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, yeah. That's what I'm saying. She's also a consultant to the lot of UN bodies, like ILO is one, which will be easily connectable to many of you. Ma'am, I will not take much time. It's already a little late. Today's session is on creative writing as a skill. The idea is that how in your life you yourself has used creative writing, because you yourself is an author and you are already an author of some repute, and also into research. You are a scholar as well of ancient, India and ancient texts of India, and you are also bringing in a lot of meat in our day-to-day conversations in the media. That is also I can see. So the idea is how is it that we can how is it that the idea is that how you have utilized this particular skill in your life, and so that we can draw some inspiration. As I having said this, I will leave it to Abhinandan Dey. Let him start the session with his own bite a little, and then we will take it forward from there.
Just give me a minute to say thank you for this very warm welcome. It's lovely to be here. It's lovely to be talking to faculty and students alike. And it's indeed my pleasure, Sudeep ji. Thank you for calling me.
Mr. Dey, if you can please start.
Ma'am, good morning. It's very early in the morning for you there. So
Yes.
first and foremost, yes,
Yes.
thank you so much for giving your time to us, because as students it's afternoon here, but for you it's early in the morning.
Yes.
So
that
thank
it
you so
is.
much for that. And I mean, Mr. Bhattacharya has already given a very luminous introduction to yourself, and as we can clearly see, it's a big honor for us to have you here. With that, since we have the students on board, let me just give an introduction of what we are. We are a 30-year-old hospitality and management education college. Most of our students are primarily undergraduate students. who are pursuing their degree courses in hospitality or in management. Switzerland being the home of hospitality education, so to say.
Yes, indeed.
So since most of our students here are management students and undergraduate students, we will keep the conversation so that they can connect to whatever we are speaking. So that is the idea. And with that, we will start the conversation with you. First and foremost, my first question to you is, from the IRS to becoming an author, what was the journey like?
Yes, that's a very big one, and that's what I get most of the time. I just had one question. If I could ask you a question.
Absolutely, yes, please.
So, are you going to allocate some time for interaction with the students and for their questions?
Absolutely. Towards the end, we will have some time. Yeah.
And that I would really like that, because it would be good to know what they are thinking, and it would be good to answer some of their questions. All right.
Sure,
Thank you.
for sure.
The question you've asked me is actually, for me, central to everything, because it's on the person and what the person thinks, that their career, their work, it all depends on what you are. So, of course, the seeds of my becoming an author, writer, researcher were very, very early in my childhood. And, I'm sure all of you revere Robbie Thakur. So I have a kind of indirect connection with him because my grandmother was his student. She used to study in Shantiniketan, and she was his student. In fact, she used to live over there. Her father had left her there, and she was kind of brought up for some years by him. So you can understand the kind of cultural atmosphere I grew up in. So I grew up on the Bihar-Bengal border. So there's a lot of Bengali influence on me. So you can understand my grandmother and my mother being very, very people who were very, very literary, very, very learned. My grandmother was a doctor also, and my mother is a teacher. So I grew up in an atmosphere of books from many different languages, especially Bengali, although I cannot read it now, and my spoken Bengali is also bad, but I grew up like that. So I was reading Hindi, Marathi, Bengali, English, everything. So these were the seeds. This is how I grew up. But then this was the 1990s, and livelihood is important. So I took the civil services exam under the condition that I would take it only once. And I told my father that if I do not get through once, I'm not going to waste any more time on it, and I will pursue academics and research. So you see, all these things were already there. As it happened, I did get through. I joined the Indian Revenue Service, and for the next 15 years or so, I was involved in the normal progression of life. I got married, I had children, I was working. But then things always happen in your life which give it a different turn. And that turn, somebody is raising their hand. Abhinandan?
I think, ma'am,
It's okay. We'll take the questions at the last.
We can take that at the last. So let us not.
All right. So I shall ignore the raised hands. All right. What happened was that my husband decided to. He was also a government servant with the CAG. He decided to work for a United Nations organization. He took 3 months of leave. I took 3 months of leave. We came to Geneva. I homeschooled my children for a few months, and I was at home. Then he decided, or rather we decided, that he would move to Geneva to work for the World Meteorological Organization. So then I had the options of doing many things. What I decided was that I would take a sabbatical from my work and do what I had always wanted to do, and that was write a book. Now, what kind of book did I want to write? I wanted to write the books I want to read. And historical fiction, I will go on to it as in what I write a little later, but just for information, I write historical fiction set in the Mauryan period, and I write popular history books, and I translate from Sanskrit. A translation of the Ramayana was published, in fact, by Rowley Books in 2016. So my focus was ancient India. I love reading books. I love reading historical fiction. But historical fiction in English is just not there. Today, I started all this in about, say, 2010. These ideas were coming to me in around 2010. At the time, there was no historical fiction writing in English. So it is kind of like establishing a genre. Today, there are other authors who are writing historical fiction in English, but at the time, they were not. And believe me, when I went to publishers and spoke to them about writing a book on Chandragupta Maurya, I was laughed out of the room in 2009, 2010. Who wants to read a book on Chandragupta Maurya? Why don't you write something about NRI life in Switzerland? That was the kind of response I got. However, this is where belief and passion comes in, which is what I would like to say. If you believe in something, do it, pursue it, no matter what kind of inputs you get from other people. So I came here on a sabbatical, Geneva, of 2 years, and I decided to write a book. But you see, I am also a researcher. I love researching. So then I started reading up on Mauryan history, almost anything and everything, simply out of interest. Later, it became a necessity, but at the time, it was out of interest. So a lot of time went by. My book didn't start because I loved reading, because I love history, because I love research. I went on doing it. And you know, research is a pastime which can keep you occupied for 18 hours a day. And you don't even know what's happening all around you. At least that's the way it is for me. So then at one point of time, my husband gently asked me whether this book is ever going to be written or whether I will only keep preparing and preparing some more. So after receiving that nudge, I did write that book. And that book became, I will show it to you, it became this book. It's called Urnabhi, the story of a Mauryan dancing girl. And it became this book. Now, okay, great. You're in Geneva, you finished a manuscript. Now what do you do? So how do you get published? Now that itself, and since that is a matter of, professional interest, publishing in India is a very, very tough proposition. For me, it was really serendipity. I don't know whether I should tell you that story now or whether in answer to some other question, but believe me, it is quite an amazing and a story which can happen only in, modern times, only in these days of technology. So anyway, this book was published. By that time, our family had decided to move to Geneva. So my husband resigned from his job a few years later. I also resigned from my job. And then because I was in Geneva and I am a bureaucrat, for the past 3 generations, my family has been bureaucrat. So I started working for different United Nations organizations here. So the idea was to write for 6 months, work for 6 months. I work as a consultant because I did not want to give up my writing career. And since I was no longer in India, no longer actually working for the Indian Revenue Service for income tax, obviously I had to resign, and I did resign from there after working for about 18, 19 years. So therefore, my background is a strange melange of a number of things. I am an academician. I did my master's and MPhil from D School. I am a bureaucrat, both a national bureaucrat and an international bureaucrat. I am also a fiction writer. I am also a history writer. So I don't know whether I can pin myself down as to one thing. There are a lot of things I have done, and some of them are completely unconnected. In fact, my work at the Food and Agriculture Organization, for example, or the Global Fund for TB, Malaria and AIDS, it has nothing to do with my fiction writing. It has nothing to do with my history writing. But there is no doubt that one person can have many, many facets. So one person can do as many things as she wants. It depends on how much time you take out for it, how much effort you put in it. And you can never forget that if you want to do something, you can do it. And I think I'm a good example of that. I have just followed my passions and desires and all the things that I want to do. And I have made a kind of, I won't call it a career because I don't like that word career. I have made it my life's work.
Right. So definitely, ma'am, you're multifaceted is something that we can say about you. And what you probably mentioned was that passion really counts, right? Because to have the courage in your passion, that you can follow it and you can make something out of it, that is as well very important. To leave a career and then jump into something completely unknown, that takes a lot of guts. So I'm sure that must have been a massive jump for you.
Actually, yes. And, we are all Indians. We know the position that bureaucrats have in India. So to resign that itself was not a very difficult decision for me because I knew what I was going to do. But for my family, it was a very difficult decision. And for my friends, they did not understand why I was doing it. You don't get very positive feedback from anyone when you're doing something like resigning from the civil services. So, yes,
Right.
it was pretty difficult. And also, you realize that you have a certain structure, you have a certain position, your life runs according to certain ways. When you resign, it's all a blank sheet. You have to write on it again. You have to re-engineer your life completely. You have to break yourself up and make yourself again. It's not easy. Sorry, I can't hear you.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, sorry,
Yeah.
I was on mute. Um, so, a lot of our students, I mean, I have met with a few of them personally as well. So I know a lot of our students, there are a few of them who think about writing. There are a few of them who even write poetry and stuff. So clearly that's a passion for them. So how do you suggest, or how do you know, tell these, young guys about their path forward if they want to make it a career in this?
I can offer a few suggestions, but I will also offer a few words of caution. Let me start with the positive parts first, with the happy parts first, and then I will definitely offer a word of caution. So I've been telling you in the past 5 minutes that this is not work for me. This is passion. This is something I love doing. Is that enough? Is that enough to make this into a lifelong career or a lifelong way to live? Is that enough? I would, on balance, not say, I mean, I don't want to discount passion because it is the moving force. But after some time, passion also has to turn into skill. And that skill has to be maintained through hard work, application, and through really applying yourself to whatever you're doing. Now, for me, creation, this is about creative writing. So it's creation, it's kriti. Kriti comes from ka, which is kala, which is actually Brahma. So it is a way of actually, it is a way of devoting yourself 100% to this. It's the seed. But, and creative writing is not a science. So I use the word skill a little loosely. But then, what happens when passion is just not enough? So let me give you an example. The first book I wrote, this one, which is called Urnabhi, a Mauryan story of adventure and seduction. So this one was my first book. So this just came out in a gush. It is said that the first book that any author writes is an expression of themselves. It is an expression of all that is inside. And I can tell you that I wrote this book as if there was a movie running in front of me, and I was just looking at the scenes of that film and writing it down on paper. So I have also received feedback that it is a very visual book, because that's the way it happened. It was all happening in front of my eyes, in my head. I was just writing it down. So it was happening in front of my eyes because there was a lot of work done behind that. All the research that I talked about, all the thinking that I will tell you about. But it just spewed out. It just came out in a passionate gush. Great. Book one over, published. Now, when you go on, when you have to keep writing more, at that point, passion is necessary but not sufficient. What is needed is a lot of hard work and development of skills which will carry you forward when passion is not enough to put those words down on paper. And these skills, again, I must tell everyone who's listening that whatever I'm saying today, it's not from a textbook, it's not from any treatise on creative writing. This is just my own experience, and my own experience in a very non technological way, because I do not write with the help of any kind of technology. I write using pen and paper. And if you speak to I have lots of friends, young writers, they use a lot of technology. They storyboard their ideas, their plots, everything. For me, it all happens here. It's not very fashionable today for everything to happen here. It has to happen through some kind of technology, but for me it happens here. It comes out through my fingers. I write with a pen on paper. The act of writing engages my mind, heart, emotions, brain, everything. And then it comes out and it is affixed on paper. Of course, I mean, after that I have to type it out. In earlier days, I used to type it out. Today, it's voice to text. So obviously much easier. But my main work is not done using any kind of technology. It is done using pen and paper. However, you have to have some kind of organization. You have to have some kind of plan. You cannot just go on the fumes of passion. You have to have some kind of specific plan, plot, etc. So, I would say in one word that passion is the seed, in one sentence, that passion is the seed, but it must turn into skill. If you are to make a career, it must turn into a skill which you learn, which you apply.
Right, absolutely. So passion is just just the initial fire, but
Yes.
to carry it forward, you need something more than that, and that is where the hard work, the research, and all of that comes in.
Yes.
And
Ex-
as someone who's delving into Indian history, and the social impact of that as well, which I've seen in some of your videos, I have seen that you're talking a lot about the social impact of the Indian history and how women were treated and all of that. So that requires a lot of understanding about society as well, and automatically I think that's where all your education experience and all of that comes together and helps you
yeah,
create these kind of content.
absolutely.
As first and foremost, as a mother, as a writer, as a bureaucrat, and finally as a scholar, so how do you manage all of this together?
When you say the first thing you said as a mother, so those were the days when I started writing. It was about, say, 2008, 2009. It was not the time when everyone in the family has separate devices. So we had one laptop in the family. My husband and me and my two children, we used to share that laptop. So we had times allocated. But obviously, everyone wanted more time. So I think in my first book, in the preface, I did write that it is also dedicated to my children, without whom this book would have been written twice as fast, because they used to keep grabbing the laptop from me. And children are very interested in having their own devices. Today, it's a different world. Everyone has their own phone, their own laptop, their own XYZ, lots of devices. But for the students who are here, they will be surprised to hear of a world where we did not have X number of laptops and X number of computers. But jokes apart, I think it's the complete package which puts itself in the book. Now, balancing is a tough task for a writer, and my family has been very long suffering. When I wrote today, both my children are, working in their own areas and they don't stay at home now. My daughter is also married, and both of them live in the US. But at the time when I was writing my first book, we were all together as a family, all four of us. And I did have my head in the clouds. So often I was on my own trip, and my family would obviously get they were not too happy about it, but of course they were very supportive because they did want me to finish it. But families have to help, support, and they have to bear with you. So suppose my husband asks me a question, I just don't answer because I'm thinking of something else. I am in the modern period and he's asking me about something related to today. So that kind of management of time is necessary, because you also have to organize your household. And when the 6 months that I was working, I also had to go for work. But for all this, family support is essential. It cannot be done without the support of, if the writer is married, of your spouse and of your children. It cannot be done without that. It needs a lot of hard work, and sometimes you just get very tired of the grind. So I can think of a few years in my life and I was very tired of the grind, because you get up at 6, send your children to school, go to work, come back, do some household work, write. So all that became a little too much. But you have to work hard if you want to achieve something. I think I have to again say the same thing. It is hard work and persistence and not giving up, and having some having a lot of strength to do everything that is necessary. But the biggest thing is the support of your family. You must have the support of your family, otherwise achieving a lot of things in so many different areas will be impossible. And I did it again, I would say, organically, because at the time when I was doing this, I wasn't thinking, oh my God, I'm doing this and this and this and this. It just happened. It would just happen that maybe I applied for this consultancy and I got it, or I wrote this book and I published it. I didn't have that life plan in front of me. After a few years, I did think of a life plan, as in combining writing and consultancy, but not in the early days. So it happened organically, and it was a lot of hard work. It was a lot of hard.
Ma'am, one question, sir. I just one question I wanted to just ask her, because I felt the whatever we have been speaking all the time. One thing is very clear, that something is very intrinsic to you, comes out in some form, and that form that you decide. And most of the time, even you can't decide. Means it's just coming out. My question is somewhat like this: that, see, you have, as you told very correctly, you already had it in you. That intrinsic quality is already there with you. You have gone through that tremendous, of course, your atmosphere and environment did help you, but still, it was there inside you, and you could very early understand that is what you have already. After that, you have worked for 15, 20 years into multiple job roles. I just want to know that creative writing skill, how did it actually impact your working? Did it actually make your work better, your communication better? In what way did it help you? If you can pick up all the dimensions and describe. Because our students, this is one learning for all the students, that if they can grow this skill, even if they have it in a very nascent form, it can take them to the next level very fast.
Yes.
It also happens for professionals as well. So if you can just take me through those few points, that will be very
Yes, actually, that's a very good question, because it is necessary to develop some skills. Now, let me tell you what skills I developed as a creative writer, which helped me in all parts of the different areas of work I have been in. See, sometimes what you learn during your bureaucratic work can impact creative writing. What you learn during creative writing will impact your bureaucratic work. And what is the one thing that I learned as a bureaucrat? I learned planning and organizing, as well as writing clearly, succinctly, and in a way so as to make everything absolutely clear to the person who is reading this. I started as a bureaucrat, so I'll speak of that first. I was in the Indian Revenue Service, and well, you know that it's income tax, but there's a lot of reading, understanding, and writing reports. When you write a report, it has to be self sufficient, it has to be organized, it has to be clear. That stood me in very good stead when I started writing a book. Because how did I start writing a book? What did I think? So the first thing was to think about what I wanted to do. What kind of book do I want to write? So that for creative writing, I'll call it vision. For my bureaucratic work, it would be whatever the report was on. Suppose I was assessing someone's income. So you have to know what you're going to do. Then only can you plan everything. You must have a vision. Then after that, once you have a vision, you must have an idea of the exact thing that you're going to write. Assessment reports have a very fixed format that is given by the law. So I follow that. In my creative writing, then I have to make up my mind what is to be done. So I think of the plot. I think of the number of words that I'm going to write. I divide it into chapters, how many words per chapter, and then I stick to it. And the plot also has to be broken down into, say, I normally write 10 chapters. That's my standard. For every book, I write 10 chapters. And I write 10 chapters of 12,000 words each. So the book should become around 120,000 words. However, of course, you know, editing and adjusting and etc. So maybe 130, something like that, 130, 136, something like that. So all these things, I start with these, and these are things that perhaps come to me from my bureaucratic background, from the idea of clarity, organization, planning, and perfect communication. Language is an important thing in this. Of course, you know, you can't use bureaucratic language while writing a novel, but to know the language that you are writing in. If you wish to write in English, know English. If you wish to write in Bangla, know Bangla. And for that, it's important to read, and read more. Read people who can communicate well. If you want to understand how to pick up those skills, read widely. And read people who are known communicators and try to find out their little tricks. What do they do? How is it that they make you understand whatever they're writing so well? For example, you know, you have this famous writer, Yuval Noah Harari. His books are very, very famous. See how he writes. He writes very simply. He writes very directly. That's his style. But say somebody else, just off the top of my head, J. Sai Deepak, who's a bit of a friend of mine, he writes in a very dense way, very complicated way, but he gets his point through. So read, try and pick up, try and see what are the things that people are doing. Now, I am saying this because, you know, I am speaking to students who are developing themselves, who are in the process of becoming what they will finally achieve. For a person like me, my style has already emerged. It's already come out. And it has come out because I spent a lot of time reading across genres, across languages, and learning how to communicate. So that perhaps is a bureaucratic skill which stands you in good stead. Learning how to communicate. Learning how to tell a story is good in whichever profession you are. Learning how to tell a story, even in the hospitality profession, you know, when you interact with people who come to your restaurant or to your hotel, the ability to tell a story about your organization, your hotel, your restaurant will attract people to you. So this is these skills are, you know, kind of interchangeable. And another thing I want to say is that you have to have some kind of observation and retention power. If you read something, docket it somewhere in your head, remember it. If you observe something around you, now I'm talking about creative writing. If you observe something, you see someone in the bus, and that person is a very interesting character, you want to perhaps put him or her in a book. Remember what they are like, observe and retain. So some of these skills are transferable. So these skills of planning, communication, clarity, scheduling, hard work, these are transferable, but they transmute in different ways when you do something which is called creative writing and when you write history. For me, the contrast comes in very, very clearly. When I'm writing fiction, the same historical facts that I pick up while researching will come through in a different way because I'm hanging a story on them. And suppose I'm writing an article, somebody has asked me to some magazine, like I write for Swarajya magazine. They have asked me to write about, say, the position of women with reference to study of the Vedas. So when I write an article, that will be just factual. When I write it, when I put it in my own book, perhaps I will show my protagonist or my heroine or some other woman character doing those things which I have written down as facts in that article. So knowing is always important, but the ways in which you use them are quite different. I don't know if I answered your question.
Ma'am, you have taken me through the question. One point that I wanted to ask actually, see, when you are writing something in a fiction mode, you are writing a lot. You are bringing in a lot of imagery, a lot of aspects which are essentially a little bit of, you might as well say putting a lot of garnishing, a lot of aspects in your words and so on and so forth. But when you are writing non-fiction, the syntax of sentences changes completely, right? So how do you manage it? Means when in your professional life you are working as well as now you are also a creative writer, time to time you keep on shifting posts for yourself and situations change. In that situation, how do you manage it? Because the entire approach, because you have to tune yourself completely, right? See, suppose this hospitality guy is talking to a client who has come to the hotel, the way he's talking there, or if he's writing, in fact, a blog post, it will be extremely different, two different extremes. So how do one manage? What sort of mindset do you think one should develop to,
See, the creative writing mind space is a special one.
Yeah, that's
So I would not suggest that anyone has a kind of creative writing mind space while doing your professional work. Because when you're writing a novel, as you said, you can embroider some stuff, you can make up some stuff. Although I must say that since I write historical fiction, I am not, except for the emotional and the description of feelings, I try to not embroider anything because I am not writing fictional history. I am writing historical fiction. So it's history which is important. The fiction is normally there only so that you can hang a story on some of it, and none of the important things are fictional. Most of the people in my books are real, except a few, of course, or some of them have literary antecedents, which I would love to discuss if there's time. But they are not completely fictional. However, you have to be more factual when you are writing something professionally. Although, Sudeep ji, I would like to give a suggestion here. The way in which you tell a story always engages the person who is listening to you. So even in your professional work, without letting go of the facts that you have to put through, if you put it in the form of a narrative or a story or a set of events which are linked, it would perhaps be more interesting for the person who comes. I don't know. I have no knowledge of the hospitality industry except as a person who goes to a hotel. But if I go to a hotel and I find someone who comes to me, say, I just enter, and they welcome me with a history of the hotel, the story of the hotel, the story of the person who set it up, I would love it.
Creating a picture is very important. Creating
Yes.
making
Yes.
you visualize exactly what it is that you are.
Exactly.
Yes, the
Getting
only
into.
thing you have to be very careful about is that no inaccuracies should creep in. When you are telling a story about the hotel, don't make it up. Stick to
True.
the facts. You can
I
make a
had
story out of those facts too. Now, when creative writing, you can make up a few things. There's no doubt about that. But in my style of writing, I try to make up as few things as possible, the real actual events or backgrounds. It's only the emotions of the people which I make up because of the story. But
listen,
Yeah,
yes,
Mr.
I had
Pinaki, we'll just take your question. Yes, sure.
yeah, I had a small question that is in regard to writing historical fictions. How is the international market? Why I'm saying this thing that as you had just mentioned, that you had faced quite a few obstacles when you wanted to write and things like that. But in India, there has been a general interest level always quite high on historical novels. In both Hindi and Bengali, we have seen some fictions and fiction writers have succeeded, historical fiction writers have been extremely successful. Like in Bengali, there has been Sharadindu Bandyopadhyay. In media, we have serials like Chanakya and things like that. They have been very successful. But yes, they are mostly into vernaculars. Now, in international market, but the obstacle which you faced was it for prima facie for the international market, or is it in India also?
in the international market, historical fiction is a very big and important genre. Unfortunately, not for ancient Indian history or medieval Indian history. For the international market, they just like colonial Indian history. If you are writing a book set in colonial India, wonderful. Your book will be picked up, your book will be published. So, the Western English market or the European market wants to read about India after post the, let us
Post
say,
colonialism.
post, even a little before that, say 14th 15th century, after Vasco da Gama's voyage.
Okay.
Yes, but the
Okay.
colonial history, they love it. That's what they want you to write. But if you want to write about something which is Indian, till at the time when I started writing, that interest was not there. Today, it is growing pretty fast. The other thing is the domestic market. It's a very interesting thing that we have historical fiction writers, as you said, in Hindi, Vrindavan Lal Verma, Acharya Chatur Sen. Tamil, we have Kalki. Bengali, you've already mentioned. You have Telugu. But English writing. And that is again something I would like to speak about. That my mother tongue is Hindi, but I write in English. For various reasons which are to do with colonization, education, the way I have been educated in an English medium school, and I have had to fight very hard to also be able to write and speak and work in Hindi. But in English as an Indian language, in English books in India, there seemed to be zero interest. That's what publishers thought 10-15 years ago in Indian history books or fiction set in the past. Today,
I would say, like, say, for example, Khushwant Singh's New Delhi. Khushwant had written it many years back. It was a pure historical fiction and it was in English. And it was a very accepted novel, which was, and it was a very reputed novel, also very well accepted.
but you see the name of the book and the contents of the book, New Delhi. What did he write about? So he wrote about a place which is more or less the symbol of colonization. He wrote about a place, and he would have written about, I have not read the book, but he would have written about the Islamic history of New Delhi.
It was Islamic history only. New Delhi, the book was Islamic,
That
That's
is
and it
yet
was very well
another.
accepted.
Okay,
So
I
that,
think I think I
yeah.
think let us not be specific
I
to any books or thing. Mr. Bhattacharya will
I
not be specific to books. Let Mr. Dey pick up from here.
Okay, since we are going back to the topic of skills, any practical tips or techniques that someone can follow to enhance their creative writing skill?
yes. So, like I said, suppose tomorrow one of the students wants to start writing a book. The first thing you must do is decide what you want to do. As I said, your vision. Then please understand or decide where are you setting it. Are you setting it in your college? In which case you know everything about it. No research is needed. Are you setting it in some other city? Maybe you need to learn a little bit about that city. Are you setting it in a different period? In which case you need to learn a lot about that period. So you have to know your setting. For that, again, you can read. You can go to that place. Suppose you live in Siliguri, you want to set something in Calcutta. You want to set something in a particular area of Calcutta. You can read about it. You can go there, and you can have a look around. uh, like one of my favorite books is the Feluda series. So you want to write something like that now. So go to those areas which are mentioned, those areas of Kolkata which are mentioned, and see what they are like. So this kind of setting research, in some cases, it can be done physically. In other cases, like mine, I cannot go back to Patliputra of 2000 years ago. So it has to be done through historical evidence. So I can read texts, I can read epigraphy, which is inscriptions on stones, etc. I can use numismatics, which is what is written on coins. I can look at the ruins of these old places. I can look at old Sanskrit plays which describe these places. So the evidence, the basis for historical fiction is different, and that for modern fiction is also different. Suppose you want to go back to the Chola period, then you can visit some sites, you can read about it. You'll have to decide how you will get enough information to color in the background. If you're making a painting, you have to color in the background. So decide how to do it. The closer it is to modern times and to your own life, then you don't have to do anything. If you were writing about a student in a college somewhere, you don't have to do anything. You already know it. But for other things, you may need to know a lot of background, a lot of information and knowledge. Remember, it has to be 360 degrees. You have to know everything. When I write about the Mauryans, I have to know where they lived, what kind of clothes they wore, what they eat, what they ate, how they spoke to each other, which language they used, everything. So historical fiction is much more difficult because there's for me 40 to 60% of my work is research. So therefore, it depends on you where you are setting it. Once you have the setting and you know what you want to do, your plot points will come to you depending on the setting. Do you want the old city of Kolkata to be a kind of background for your story? Then you set your story over there, some specific places, some places that you like, you can set it over there. And remember, the setting will also dictate the plot. Now, if I am writing of the Mauryan period and I say that one character is, telephoning the other character, it is rubbish because no telephones existed. So you have to be very careful of these things. And I gave a very common and easy example. But there are some very complicated examples also. Like horses were, people rode horses in the Mauryan period as well in today's day. But the way in which they rode those horses, the harness, everything was completely different. So you have to keep these things in mind, and sometimes your setting may suggest the plot. For instance, in my first book, since it's a thriller, I don't want to give out anything, but I do remember that I read about the discovery of a hoard of coins in Takshashila. And that was one of the major things around which the plot of Urnabi hinges. So these things will give you some idea of what you want to write. And then, of course, I told you that, you have to plan the book. You have to, after all that, I'm afraid there's one thing you cannot get away from, and that is hard work. For any question that you ask me, hard work is one answer that I will always give you, because without application, without hard work, even the most wonderful vision in your head will not get translated onto paper. So you have to work hard. And I have spoken about the way you hone your skills: read, pick up, observe, retain, and then apply, use, and project.
Ma'am, one
So
point.
those are the steps to follow. Yeah.
Yeah, one
So,
point. One point I want to just ask you. Reading these days, whenever you talk to students, they say, "No, no, sir, we read." Then I try to get deeper into it, and I find they say their reading is confined to what they read it on the handset. Okay, it is no longer the books thing that. So what is different? Is it the reading that you are saying? We all read a lot of things. They also consume a lot of content. That's mainly on the digital space. So do you think that is the same as the one reading that you are talking about? Because there are functionally and qualitatively a lot of different things.
Yes, so reading on a digital device happens for everyone. I also use a lot of digital devices for my research, because I don't know if you can see behind me, this is my library. So these are the real books that I have, which I open and I refer to these books. And this book is always there next to me, because basically it's on the Arthashastra that all my entire series is based. However, I do also have research books on my Kindle, and I also have lots of PDF books, hundreds of them, in fact, maybe thousands of them, as a digital library. So the device does not matter so much, because my research happens with physical books, it happens on digital devices. It is the content which matters. So if
the
you are
quality of the research that
so if you are only reading, say, whatever popular magazines or just I don't know, websites which don't have much in-depth content, and I am sorry to say the language used is very poor, extremely poor. So I would say, if you like to read on a digital device, fine, use a Kindle or use your laptop, but read people who have command over language. Because what do you have to do? Creative writing, what do you have to do? You have to create a universe. To create that universe, you need knowledge, you also need words. You need to say those things which make something absolutely rise up in front of the reader. And for the students, you are still young. You have a lot of experiences to gather. Gather those experiences directly, but also read from other people's experiences who have gone before you. And this is a very old-fashioned piece of advice, but I will still give it. Please read classics in whichever language you wish to excel in. Please read classics. Read classics in English, read classics in Bengali, in Hindi. You will learn words, you will learn styles of communication, you will learn clarity, you will learn how to use language as a tool. Whatever profession you are in, whatever you do after you graduate, using language as a tool to communicate is the single most important thing, whether you are the Secretary General of the United Nations or whether you are working in a hotel. And that is something you can learn through reading people who have the ability and the talent and the skill to express themselves very well.
True. So I think communication is something that we have been talking internally as well with our students a lot.
Yes.
All of this time it was about communicating in public and all of that, but communication is actually a holistic skill, art, science, and all of that.
Yes.
So it is something that has to be inculcated deep into one system to be able to do it really well. So
and it is necessary. It is necessary and pivotal for anything. See, I have followed many professions, and in each profession, I have found that the ability to speak or to write, to express what I am thinking in such a way that you understand it, that is the single most important thing you need to impress someone. Suppose you are going for an interview, that's what you need. To be able to tell people what you are thinking. But of course, you must have something inside your head also. There has to be something good to express. So gather information, gather knowledge, get experiences, put something in your head, and then take it out in the best way possible.
Right. So I think we have had a fantastic session so far. Since we are reaching the end of the session, we have another few minutes left. I will open the platform for questions. Mr. Pinaki, I can see you have raised your hand.
Yeah, I had one thing to ask you, madam. That is, if you can say a few words on how creative writing or this creative writing skill can help the students in regard to business communication as well. Because at the end of the business communication means, because you being a creative writer, it has definitely helped you in passing on messages, in communicating in your professional area also. So if you can share some bit of this, maybe your experiences also, how it can enrich the students.
Yes, so this question, I think I have spoken of this 5-10 minutes ago when I said that it is planning, organization, clarity, language, which is common to. There's a lot of noise. I think people will have to mute themselves. I cannot hear myself speak.
At least I think there's a lot of noise. I can see the students from the Deepak, Deepak, if you can kindly check out.
So the skills that are needed for creative writing and for business writing are not very, except that facts have to be put out and you cannot embroider them in any way. In response to what Sudeep ji had said, I have just, I think, answered this question that the same things are needed as you know what you want to say, plan what you want to say, communicate properly, and you have to be able to have some logical sequence for business writing or business as well as for creative writing and communication. You have to have your message, you should know your message, and you should be able to communicate it properly. So I do not think that there is a great division between creative writing and between business messaging. The content is different, and there may be, like we said, little bit of embroidery in creative writing, but the purpose of both is the same, that is to communicate and to the other person your idea should reach. It starts in your head. You make a kind of a planned speech out of it. It comes out of you using certain words. It reaches the other person, and the other person should understand it very well. So the two are not separate and cut and dried. The same principles of communication, clarity, planning, language operate for both.
Right. Students, do you have any questions to ask? We still have a couple of minutes to go. So if you have any questions, please put up your hands and we'll take them.
I think there had been a few ones in the initial stages who had raised their hands.
In the
I
initial
think,
stages, right.
and because you had been so very descriptive, by and large, all of these questions were taken care of. I do presume. One question I would like to finally ask, ma'am, which is very important. I think this is something I have held very closely in my understanding, although it's basically an opinion. One's mother tongue, ability to speak or articulate in the mother tongue, if it is not good enough, then whatever languages you are trying to learn will never be of the same material or the same quality. Means you'll not be able to achieve that quality. So, what is your understanding about this mother tongue and foreign tongue, sort of equation? If you can please help us understand that.
Sudeep ji, thank you for asking this question. This is my, what can I say, one of the main things which bothers me all the time as a writer. I told you my mother tongue is Hindi, and I went to a Loreto convent, a missionary school, an English medium school where I learned very good English. And for me, I did not lose touch with Hindi because I told you of my family background. But there are a number of people who did lose touch with their own mother tongues, whatever their mother tongues may have been. And not knowing your mother tongue means that you are handicapped in a very, very basic way, because that is your mother tongue is what has actually wired your brain as you grew up. That is how
True.
you spoke to everyone in your family, to your mother, to your father, to your grandparents, to your siblings. That is a basic expression of you. And if you lose that, if you don't have that, it is like your, arms are cut off. So again, a very personal kind of experience. I think in Hindi and Sanskrit, but I write in English, and that causes an amazing number of problems, because all languages are different conceptually. So a concept which is there in Sanskrit is not there in English. For my book 1, I must show you both the books which I have not. This is book 2, which is called Chanakya Scribe, and this is book 1. And as we speak, I'm writing book 3. It's called The Waters of the Mauryans. But in book 1, there was a certain word called Tribhang. It is a dance pose. So I had a description where my heroine was standing in a Tribhang pose. Now, Priya and my editor said, this Tribhang no one will understand. So you please explain in English or do something. It took me such a long time, because if you write in English that it was a kind of triangle pose, does it convey the same thing as a Tribhang? It does not.
It
This
doesn't.
is a small example. I write of things that were there in the Mauryan period, and they cannot be described in English. Ideally, I should be writing in an Indian language, either Hindi, Bangla, Telugu, Tamil, in that language, because there all the concepts are there. So
True.
everyone must keep in touch with their mother tongue, no two ways about it. And I have another suggestion. If you want to know all Indian languages and understand them, learn Sanskrit. This has happened to me. I learned Sanskrit for my research purposes, and now I am able to enjoy Telugu films, Tamil films, Kannada films. See, North Indian languages I already knew. If you know Hindi, you can understand a lot of North Indian languages. Now I also understand South Indian languages, because Sanskrit is the mother of all these languages. So
True.
you must learn your mother tongue. So Deepji, I am so glad you mentioned this. Although I'm a writer in English, I think I would
No,
like to
because
encourage
I
everyone
have,
in their mother tongue.
you know what, I since I deal with students and often talk to them, I have always a feeling that talking about their mother tongue, often they don't show that degree of respect, degree of indulgence in that.
So
and
students,
and,
please,
then, and that is something very important. Means if your mother tongue is not in the right place, no matter what language you speak, it will never have the same
and
enrichment and the ability.
that is because you will be rootless. Without your
Yes,
mother tongue, you don't have any roots. If you don't have any roots, you don't have anything to show people. No roots, no
true,
branches, no flowers.
true,
So
very true.
everyone here, whatever your mother tongue, go back today, start reading, writing, watching films or whatever in it.
True. Acha, ma'am, Urbi Ghosh, our senior Dr. Urbi Ghosh Bhattacharya, she has got some question, I think so.
Yeah, but
Urbi,
I
if you,
actually got the answer. This was the same question that I wanted to ask, ma'am.
oh dear.
Another
That's,
ma'am is
I
that
told you, right? The moment you are very descriptive, you
And
come in.
since so many of you may have Bangla as your mother tongue here,
Yeah,
and it's
that's
one of my favorite languages. So anybody who is not reading in Bangla is losing out.
Yeah,
So
true.
start, and anybody who's not watching films in Bangla or watching serials in Bangla, you are losing out a lot. So start reading. I mean, Bangla has such classics.
True, true.
You will learn about the human condition. You will learn about how to express that. I think some of the best literature in the world is in Bangla.
In fact, madam, economics and literature, these are two areas Bengalis have always excelled because the tremendous ruthless political story that we have got, division of Bengal and the entire, how the whole gamut. Even today also you find it's a melting pot and it's a boiling pot as well. So we are very good at economics, especially welfare economics. And you'll find this Nobel Prize is coming to two of our Bengali, guys. And literature, obviously, we had always been very rich in literature.
But
In fact,
although
that
I
is what.
have one question, Sudeep ji, normally I have found that people from Bengal are very good about learning, using, and reading in their mother tongue. Is it no longer the
Yes.
case?
No, no, it is there. It is still there. But gradually, what's happening is, our schools, we are having lesser and lesser of government schools now.
Hmm.
People are more investing in this sort of
English.
education in English medium, because as is the case, if you are a very good student, it doesn't matter which language you are speaking. But if you are really a mediocre student, or you have to fight your way through, English is one of the perhaps most important tools in
But
our life.
I
So
have a message from the international world for all of you students. It's not a world for English anymore. Those days
yeah,
are
it's
gone.
right.
Today, people are expressing themselves and working in their own languages, and they are being respected for it. There is a
True,
lot
true.
of respect in the international community for your own language and for your own mother tongue. So you must
Yeah.
also inculcate that respect. It has already arrived in the international situation.
Very true. And Bengali is perhaps in US also recently. Bengali has got some status, right, as a very important language. Recently, I heard. Yeah, I think,
Thanks,
ma'am, that
thanks
is
to the recent elections.
after this. See, that is another point. Mr. Dr. Suresh Gaur, he is one of the PR gurus of the country. He is there who is going to talk. Sir, if you can please ask the question.
No, I will not ask the question. I was just listening to Sumedha ji's wonderful lecture since last 1 hour at least, I used to say. And what
Sir,
she
why
said
don't you come
recently
on?
about
Why-
Bengali literature, about Bengali films. I will tell you one example. Recently, I have contributed one chapter in a book on the title of the book. I just tell you is sometimes you just
Yes, just slips your mind. Yeah, it's okay.
yeah. Actually, I have written a
Age
chapter that is Satyajit Ray, the master filmmaker's legacy, the final trilogy.
Okay. Absolutely.
On his last 3 films, that is Shakha, Prashakha, Ganashatru, and Aguntuk, I wrote a chapter, and I'm really so happy to say that the chapter has been accepted for publication.
So I
by
have
publisher.
watched all of his films, not just once, but many, many, many times. And
Definitely.
obviously, I am a absolutely great fan. But I also I started reading Robbie Thakur not just later, but I have also read the Bhanu Singhe Padavali, and I love it. I absolutely love it, and I love the way it is sung. So the more you read in so many different languages, the more are the different colors of Indian life that you get to know.
Exactly.
And in my books, so ancient Bengal, Pondra, Chandraketugarh, they play a big role, and they are there in a very big way in my book.
Yeah, I really appreciate. I loved your this talk.
Thank you.
It was a very candid talk. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Right, Mr. Bhattacharya, I think that we are close to the
Ma'am,
end.
the very fact that we have to now close it because time is over is something that is really biting me. I really, honestly speaking, really loved each word that you have spoken. The good part of the story is to a great extent, and Dr. Gaur, who is there now on live, you can see him there. He had spoken only on Monday. You are all stalwarts at your own respective fields. Students have learnt a lot. More important, even we have learnt a lot, to be very honest. And there is a tremendous resonance of what you are thinking to a great extent, what we also think. Now, we are educational institutions. We are also dabbling with words. In your case, it's something ancient. We are trying to do something modern. Okay. But ma'am, this is only the beginning. I want to stress upon this point. I would request you to be there with us whenever the opportunity time comes. And I thank you so much, sir. Just hold. Mr. Gaur has got another question. Mr. Gaur.
No question. I want to thank you for this. Deepji, you sent the link to me about this talk, and I made a point to attend this.
Dr. Gaur, you will be there with us. As I told you, ma'am is also there today. ma'am will be there with us in the future also. She'll also get
So-
invited.
so
Ji,
nice of
I
you.
have something to say about that. I would really love to be there another time because this
Yes, sir.
time I have not really been able to speak to the students. So it would be
Yeah.
good to have a session where I could, also get some questions from students. So I will
Absolutely.
definitely look forward to coming to your institution again online, or
Sure.
maybe who knows, if I travel to India, I can
Ma'am,
actually.
when you are in India, give me a buzz so that I can connect you immediately. Even
We
that
would,
is
we
also
would love to do that.
in an open invitation to Dr. Gore as well. So I have even told him also last time when we met. So we would like to have you here on the campus, and it
Yes,
will be a
I
great.
will.
It will be
Same
a
here.
celebration for all of us. Thank you so much, ma'am. With this, we will close it. Thank you so much, and we will
Thank
keep
you
in touch.
to all of you.
Thank
It
you.
was a wonderful experience. Namaskar.
Thank
you,
you,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Thank you.
Namaskar,
Thank you.
ma'am.
Have a good day, all of
Thank
you. Thank you.
Have a good day.